Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here, again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of J.S. Bach's chorale harmonizations. Today we're looking at Wo soll ich fliehen hin, which translates to Where should I fly from here? This is a pretty straightforward chorale, not too many interesting harmonic tidbits, a couple very beautiful moments, but everything's functionally harmonic, so we're going to just hop right into the analysis. So 2 flats in the key signature, we start on G minor, and we end on G major, so I reckon we're in the key of G minor. That's our 1 chord, like I just said. C, C, E flat, and G. That's C minor in root position, passing 7th in the bass. C minor is our 4 chord. Then we have A, C, E, and A, and this E natural. We might be tempted to call it a 2 chord because this is a harmonization of melodic minor. However, I feel like this E is an accented non-chord tone, and this is actually F sharp diminished over A, which is a 7/6 chord. 4 going to 7 is a much more likely progression than 4 going to 2 then to 7. Besides, also only one voice is moving, so I don't really think that these are 2 separate chords. It's just a line with an accented non-chord tone. That's my opinion, but I think both analyses would be accurate. G, D, G, and B flat is G minor, our tonic triad, passing 7th in the bass. E flat, G, and C. That is C minor over E flat, which is our 4/6, and our half cadence here, D, A, F sharp, and D. That's D major. That's our dominant triad, and this is a particular type of half cadence called a Phrygian half cadence because of the half step movement in the bass from flat 6 to 5. Which is like the supertonic going to the tonic in like a Phrygian mode. Okay, looking ahead, we have another half cadence in the key of G minor. We start off the phrase with C, A, F sharp, and D. That's D7 over C, so we could just change the figured bass to reflect the fact that the chord really isn't changing too much except for the bass. We then have B flat, G and D, which is G minor in first inversion, 1/6. Then we have A, C, G, and C, and similar to the progression that we had in our first phrase, we could call this a 2/7 chord. We don't know if it's half diminished or if it's minor because we don't have the E natural here to contextualize, but I think this G is a 7/6 suspension over the bass, and this F sharp is actually our chord tone, so again, this is another 7/6 chord in my opinion. And then we get G minor in root position, G, D, G, and B flat, which is our tonic triad. That goes to C, E flat, A, and C. That's A diminished in first inversion. Bach loves 2/6 chords, and that goes to 5, D, D, F sharp, and A, marking our half cadence. Part 2. Okay, looking ahead, we have probably the most interesting cadence in the whole chorale. I believe it's a half cadence in the key of G minor, but there is some heavy accent on B flat major throughout the phrase, and it kind of feels deceptive in a way, so I'm not 100% certain which one it is, but I'm going to stick to the half cadence analysis here just because of the chord that is arrived at on the actual fermata. So if you hear this as a deceptive cadence, I kind of hear it as a deceptive cadence as well, not like 5 going to 6, but rather 5 of B flat going to a chord that we don't expect. Then I think a deceptive cadence would be an apt title for this. But after this D major chord, similar to the transition into the second phrase, we have another D major triad, but we don't have the change of bass here, so we don't need to reanalyze that chord. We get G minor immediately afterwards, G, D, G, and B flat. That's our tonic. We then have F, E, A, and C. However, I think this E is our chord tone, actually. Wait, no, am I doing that right? No, that's not correct. Wait, we have E, E, A, and E flat, A, and C. Apologies, I think this E flat is also a chord tone, but this is actually just a 7/7 chord, F7, so our subtonic 7th with the minor 7th on the outside as well, and this is a passing 7th in the bass, which is a chord tone. You might also call this 5/7 of 3, because the chord that it goes to is a 3 chord, or it eventually goes to a 3. Oh no, it does go to a 3 chord. Apologies, I was confusing B flat and G for some reason. we have D, F, B flat, and D, which is B flat major in first inversion. So 7 does go to 3. That's a byproduct of, well, 7 wants to go to 3 because of the cycle of falling fifths. So the fact that 7 goes to 3, that's one perfectly fine analysis. Some people, or I've seen some textbooks refer to 5-7 of 3 because 7 is reserved for leading tone sevenths in minor keys, but I don't really see the point. I think it's kind of redundant, or it's just an unnecessary level of analysis, but I get where they're coming from because it does function kind of like a dominant, but it is diatonic to the scale at the end of the day, so I don't really see the point. We have a passing tone in the bass before we get B flat major, B flat, F, B flat, and D, which is just taking the 3 chord and putting it in root position, before we get E flat, G, B flat, and C. That's C minor 7 over E flat, which would be 4-6-5 if we're analyzing this in the key of G minor. This would be 2-6-5 if we were in the key of B flat, and I'll offer that analysis after this. Then we have F major, F, F, A, and C. That's our 5, not our 5 chord. Apologies, that is our 7 chord, again, root position, passing 7th in the tenor, neighbor tone in the alto, before we get not 1, but D major, F sharp, D, A, and D. And even more interestingly, D major in first inversion, so we have a half cadence where the chord is in first inversion. It's very unusual. Now if you were to analyze this in the key of B flat, I mean, you could start this entire phrase in the key of B flat, right? You can call this G minor chord 6, you can call this 5-7, you can call this 3-1-6, you can call this 5-3, that doesn't change. You can call this C minor 7 chord over E 2-6-5, you can call this F chord a 5 chord, and then that would be where the analysis sort of stopped, because cadencing on a secondary dominant, I'm not entirely sure how strong that analysis is, so I feel like there's some point where we pivot, and this is really what makes it feel like a deceptive cadence to me, because if you look at this analysis in B flat, it looks a lot cleaner than the analysis in the key of G minor, but the cadence is ultimately in G minor, and just because we're getting some B flat focus doesn't necessarily mean that we've left the key of G minor, but it definitely does feel like there's some B flat going on here. The line is blurred for sure. Okay, looking ahead, we have a perfect authentic cadence in the key of B flat, so we kind of get that resolution that we wanted at the end of this cadence, or at the end of this phrase, in the next phrase. So we have D major afterwards, D, A, F sharp, and D. That's taking our 5-6 chord and turning it into root position, so we'll just change the figured bass. And then we move to the key of B flat via this G minor chord. So G, B flat, D, and B flat is our tonic triad, but it's also our submediant in the key of B flat. We then go to A, F, C, and C. That's F major over A. That's a 5-6 chord, passing 7th in the tenor before we get B flat, D, F, and D. That's our tonic triad. Passing 7th in the bass, passing tone in the tenor. Then we get G, B flat, G, and D. That's our submediant again, G minor. Passing 7th in the bass before we get E flat, B flat, G, and C. Another C minor 7 chord in first inversion. That's 2-6-5. Bach loves 2-6-5 chords. We then have F, A, F, and C. That's F major in root position, our 5 chord, which is just it's identical to the cadence that we have here. And then we have a passing 7th in the alto before we cadence on B flat major, B flat, F, D, and B flat, which is our tonic triad. Okay, looking ahead, we have a half cadence, or what I'm calling a half cadence in the key of B flat major, because we cadence on this F major here, and we pretty much, other than this F sharp, which is a secondary leading tone, we stay diatonic to the key of B flat. We have another B flat chord here, B flat, F, or yeah, B flat, F, and D. We then have A, C, F, and F. That's F major in first inversion. That's our 5-6 chord. And then we go back to B flat major, B flat, D, F, and D, which is our tonic triad in root position. We have a passing tone in the alto before we get D major in first inversion, F sharp, D, A, and D, which is a secondary dominant, which is 5-6 of 6 because G is now our 6 rather than our tonic in the key of G minor, and we have a passing 7th here in the tenor as well. And that resolves where we would expect G minor, G, B flat, G, and D. It's our 6th chord, passing 7th in the bass, and then we get another secondary leading tone here, E, B flat, G, and C. So as opposed to getting C minor in first inversion, we get C7 in first inversion. This is just a substitution for 2, and instead we get 5-6-5 of 5 because C is the dominant of F, and this is a half cadence, so it's not uncommon for us to see secondary dominance as a predominant chord in our half cadences. We have neighbor tones in the inner voices before we get C, B flat, G, and C, which is just taking the 5-6-5 chord and turning it into root position, 7-5-3. I'm not even sure, sorry for the loudness in the background, lots of traffic on the roads because of the weekend. We have C, B flat, G, and C, which is an incomplete 7 chord on the beat, but we get the E right before the cadence. The G and the E surround the F. So I'm not entirely sure if the 7 is necessary here because it was present in the previous chord. I'll just leave it. It doesn't hurt anything if it is there. And then we get F, A, F, and C, which is our dominant in the key of B flat. Okay, looking ahead, we have a perfect authentic cadence in the key of G minor, and I think we don't modulate straight away, but we modulate, I think, on this beat here because immediately following is melodic minor ascending in the key of G minor, so it happens in this zone right here. We have another F major chord, F, A, F, and C, so no need to reanalyze. Passing 7th in the alto before we get B flat, D, and D. Another one of these interesting double tonic, double third voicings. It's our tonic in the key of B flat, but I think in the key of, this is also 3 in the key of G minor. Well, objectively it is 3 in the key of G minor, but I think this is where we modulate. Anything later is we're already in the key of G, or we're starting the idea and the modulation is already taking place. Anything earlier, you could make an argument that the F is a 7 chord because 7 wants to go to 3, but that's the same thing as saying 5 going to 1 in the key of B flat, so I feel like this is the happy medium. We then have C, A, E, and C. That's A minor over C. Sometimes we see 2 harmonized using the melodic minor scale, because once you raise the 6th, the 2 chord becomes minor, as opposed to its diminished form if it is spelled using the just regular natural minor scale, the one diatonic, or the one that uses the same pitch collection as the relative major. And then we have some passing tones here, and this spells a D7 chord, D, A, F sharp, and C. So we have a passing 5-7 chord, and we would expect 2 to go to 5. So it's interesting that we get it's not, I mean it is interesting, but it makes sense that we get a subdivision of the harmonic rhythm here to make the progression a little bit more normative before 2 going to, before 2 goes to something less expected. Like we don't really see 2 go to 6 all that often, which is where we go. We have a deceptive progression, E flat, G, G, and B flat. So 2 going to 6, it's not a super normative progression because we typically expect 6 to 2. It's not unprecedented, but it's far less common than 6 going to 2. So 5 going to 6 is much more common, and 2 going to 5 is much more common. So I think Bach is cognizant of that, which is, it's cool. Then we have D, E, G, and C. I think this D, or this E flat rather, I think this D is an accented non-chord tone, and what we're dealing with here is C minor in root position, C, E flat, G, and C. That is a 4 chord in root position. And then we get D, D, G, and A. This G is a 4-3 suspension over the bass. And ultimately what this is going to allude to is just a 5 chord, because once the resolution happens on the next beat, the C is a non-chord tone, this B flat's a non-chord tone, but then the C gets contextualized as the 7th of the chord at the same time as the F sharp gets resolved down to, so the chord gets turned into D7 rather than D major, and then we cadence on G major, G, B, D, and G. Bach often ends his minor chorales with a major tonic. I imagine it's because he wants to end on a more uplifting note, because typically the cantata ends with the chorale. Not always, but the vast majority of the time. But that is today's analysis. It's a pretty straightforward chorale, not too many interesting harmonic tidbits or things to debate. I think that the analysis is pretty straightforward, and those chorales are always very pleasant because it's just one linear take, and I'm confident in the analysis that I produce. But if you're interested in following me along on this journey to analyze all of the chorale harmonizations that Bach has composed, feel free to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification icon. I upload once a day, so if you want your daily dose of Bach or your daily dose of analysis, or both, this is the right place to be. But other than that, thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you so much for supporting the channel by doing so. I look forward to tomorrow's analysis, and I hope you take care.